In today's ever-changing global scene, the Philippines stands out as a captivating story in international relations. Once closely aligned with China, it's now carving its own path. And despite facing challenges, the Philippines demonstrates resilience and determination. Let's explore how the Philippines' relationship with China in politics, economics, and culture shapes today's world. Let's start by looking at how Rodrigo Duterte changed things a lot during his time as president. He did things differently, especially with other countries like China. Instead of staying close to old friends like the United States, Duterte wanted to have some romance with China. This big change in how the Philippines dealt with other countries was a really important part of Duterte's time as president. To understand why Duterte chose to be friends with China, we need to know what made him do that. It was a major shift from being close to Western countries, especially the US, and it made a big impact in the Philippines and all around the world. Duterte thought that if the Philippines became closer to China, it would bring a lot of good things like money from Chinese businesses, help from China, and more Chinese people coming to visit. He believed this would help the Philippines grow its economy. Big plans for building things like roads and bridges, a lot of which were part of what China called the Belt and Road Initiative, were supposed to change how the country grew. They also promised to help Filipino things get sold in China more easily. Duterte thought that becoming better friends with China could help solve problems about who owns what in the South China Sea. He wanted to find a peaceful way to fix these problems that would be good for both sides. But things went differently than planned. Even though China gave some money for projects, it wasn't as much as expected. The big plans to build things took a long time to start and caused arguments. Also, the problems in the South China Sea didn't get fixed, and sometimes things got worse, even though Duterte wanted friendship. Making friends with China caused arguments at home too. Some people thought it was a good idea because the world was changing, while others worried that relying too much on China might make the Philippines give up its power, especially about the South China Sea. Other countries nearby also got worried about this change in direction. Even old friends like the US had to face the fact that their influence was getting weaker with a country they had been friends with for a long time. As Duterte's time as president ended, people had different opinions about how making friends with China went. Some thought it brought good things, but there were still a lot of problems that didn't get solved. The way the Philippines and China became friends changed a lot, but whether it was good or bad depended on who you asked. When Duterte finished being president, it was time for Bongbong Marcos to take over, and he had to deal with what Duterte left behind. As we talk more, we'll see how Marcos is handling all these issues and maybe changing how the Philippines deals with China. Now let's jump to today, where we're in the time when Marcos is the president. He's been showing in small ways that maybe the Philippines might start dealing with other countries, especially China, in a different way. Marcos did something that made people think about security problems with a company called NGCP, which has a lot of connections to China. He said that if there's a good reason, like keeping the country safe, he might take away NGCP's rights to do certain things, hinting that things might change in how the country deals with China. Here's a quick explanation. The NGCP is in charge of running and improving the country's electricity system. It's a company that's not owned by the government, and China's State Grid Corporation owns a big part of it, about 40%. Another big thing that affects how the Philippines and China get along is the arguments about who owns what in the South China Sea. Things got tense when Chinese and Filipino boats almost crashed into each other. Marcos talked about this with Chinese leaders. This event shows how tricky and sometimes not very calm the relationship between the Philippines and China can be. With a lot of things going on in the world, President Marcos is trying to be active in making friends again with countries the Philippines has known for a long time, like the United States and Australia. This move adds something new to how the country deals with other countries, and it might help keep China's influence in the area in check. When we look at the Philippines making friends with these countries again, it's really important to understand the whole story and what might happen because of it. President Marcos talking to US President Joe Biden and Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong at this time is a smart move and changes how the Philippines works with other countries. Also, it's important to remember that Japan and the ASEAN Union have been having more discussions together to try to control China's actions in the South China Sea. Over time, the United States and the Philippines have built strong friendships in different areas like defense, money matters, and talking with other countries. This strong relationship didn't grow much during Duterte's time as president, but recent talks between Presidents Biden and Marcos show that it might be getting better again. If this renewed friendship keeps growing, it could mean good things for the military and for working together on money stuff between the two countries. When it comes to defense, there's a bigger focus on being smart about what to do, like with the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. This agreement is meant to help keep peace and safety in the area and has brought back some US soldiers to the Philippines. Actually, in the past few months, there have been more of them around. Having a stronger friendship with the United States could give the Philippines a good advantage against China, which is getting more powerful in that part of the world. If the friendship between the US and the Philippines gets stronger, it could help balance out China's growing power and make sure things are fair in that area. Also, talking with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong is another important step forward. Australia is really important in the Asia-Pacific area, and they have a lot of similar interests with the Philippines, like trading things, making sure the region is safe, and following the rules everyone agrees to. Getting closer to Australia could help keep things calm and going well in the area, and also make a strong team to handle problems together. Recently, the Philippines seems to be making smart moves by making friends with Japan and the ASEAN group, especially with tensions going up in the area. This seems like a plan to work together against China acting more and more confidently. They're focusing on making friends with different countries one-on-one and together, all to make sure the South China Sea stays safe and everyone keeps their freedom there. But doing this and getting closer to old friends like the US and Australia is not easy. The US and Australia have their plans in this area, so the Philippines has to be careful when making friends to make sure they help the Philippines too. It's like playing a very tricky game. If it's done right, the Philippines could get lots of good things, but if not, it might not end well. Also, it's important to think about how China might react to these changes. This new way of doing things might make China unhappy and could affect working together on money stuff, partnerships, and the tricky problem of arguing about who owns what in the sea. But what's just as important is how the Filipino people feel about these changes in how the country deals with other countries. What people in the country think can change how the government decides to work with other countries, because making friends with others isn't just about people outside the country, it's about what people inside the country think too. We still don't know if the public will like the idea of moving away from China and making friends with old pals, or if they'll get upset and say no. At the end of the day, the Philippines has to be careful about how they do things, making sure they keep everyone happy, people nearby and people far away, but also people at home. That's it for today, and now we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Do subscribe to the channel if you like our content. We will catch you in the next one.